Welcome to People Are the Point. I'm your host, Mark Concannon. Let's talk about the people. I'm Mark Concannon, your host for People Are the Point. Today I'm thrilled to welcome someone who's lived not just one, but three fascinating lives. Matthew Carrier, a leader in my consulting firm, and someone I respect and consider a friend. From a lifelong passion for music that took him to Nashville, producing tracks for country and Christian artists, to working with global icons like Jamie Foxx, Mary J. Blige, and assisting on songs for Justin Bieber and Lady Gaga in Los Angeles. Matthew's journey is as dynamic as it is inspiring. But music is just the beginning. After transitioning into film scoring and working on 13 films, Matthew's life took a turn when he embraced his love for family and a more grounded career. From managing Gordon Ramsay's restaurant at the London West Hollywood to founding successful music businesses back in Nashville, including the Songhouse, with a massive following, over 2 million people across social media, Matthew's entrepreneurial spirit shines through. Now, as part of Concannon Business Consulting, he uses his diverse experiences to help solve complex problems for businesses. Whether it's music, leadership, or the art of balancing life as a father and family man, Matthew's story is full of lessons we can all learn from. Welcome, Matthew.
Well, Matthew, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're in Nashville today, is that right?
That's right. Yep.
You ready for the holidays?
Is anyone ever ready for the holiday? I sadly think it comes a time in your life where you're ready for the holidays to be over.
Yes, that sounds about right.
No.
Now, did you get an early planner and you got all the shopping done ahead of time, or you still have some things due this week?
Yeah, so I think because of Amazon, it's allowed people to get things done a little bit. I got everything done. Yes, I'll say it that way. I wouldn't say I'm an early planner, but I have everything done, so we're good.
That's great. Now, your path to Nashville, a little circuit, Denver, Los Angeles, around the Nashville, and previously you've done some work in sort of restaurant retail. You've also done a lot of work with music. Let's start kind of at the beginning. Like what brought your career, I think, really more to the hospitality space as a starting point?
Well, I think you can't say I was in the music industry without saying I had to also work hospitality. I can't think of very many actors or musicians out in LA that also weren't servers or working in hotels. And so I started off in college. I studied music. I started off as a jazz piano performance major and then moved more into the business side of music. So when I graduated college, it was in 2007. It was right when the economy really started kind of taking a downturn due to the housing crisis, and finding jobs was very difficult for me. So I was applying everywhere I could. Only place that would accept me was Starbucks. And started off at, I think it was $8.15 an hour is what I was getting paid as having my bachelor's degree. So my business degree, and I was making, $8 an hour. But honestly, I do credit Starbucks for pretty much giving me probably the best management training I've had up to this point. They put me on a fast path to management. So I took a lot of courses, and there I really learned the idea or concept around situational leadership, which is essentially, I came in very, as you know, I can be very confident in what I say. Doesn't always mean I know exactly what I'm saying, but that's just kind of how I come across. And sometimes when you're correcting somebody, if you're correcting a particular person the same way, every single different person, you're saying, you're using the same methods. Some people respond differently to that. And so I learned this concept of situational leadership, which is like how you receive information might be different than how somebody else receives feedback or information. And so that kind of started my desire to get more into leadership roles. I moved out to LA, continued in the music industry, got a chance to work with some pretty cool artists that I was a fan of. And then I got married.
Who's one of your favorite artists you got to perform with or interact with?
Well, so I got to work on, a song that Justin Bieber ended up doing on his first records back in the day, which was fun for me to look back and say, oh, cool, I got a chance to be a part of that. Jamie Foxx had done a record, and I got a chance to work on Jamie Foxx's record and do, one of his live shows, which was really fun. Yeah, just kind of being out there and seeing how that whole world works. I got to be honest with you, I got a little burnt out by just waiting on paychecks to come in the mail or just show up. And so at that time, also, I went and I worked in a restaurant. Got an opportunity to actually manage Gordon Ramsay's restaurant when I was out in West Hollywood area, and that took what I already learned at Starbucks and really kind of put it over the edge of there's a book called was Unreasonable Hospitality, and it just really a lot of those concepts I really learned in the Gordon Ramsay environment, which is taking care of people, and not just the people that are paying the money, but also the people that are serving the people. And it was such a great opportunity to learn about that. And so after that, we made the move back to Nashville, and I've been out here kind of on my entrepreneurship and leadership journey, as you are aware of.
Well, so it sounds like from Starbucks, you took some leadership skills around tuning the message to the audience. But then it sounds like in the Gordon Ramsay environment, you learned some more about, and that is the point, is the people in the workforce, making sure you're serving them as a leader is a big piece of what made you a leader in growth. Is that a summary?
Yeah, I want to tell a quick story. In that environment, it's you have a lot of important people that come into the restaurant, and everyone's important that comes in the restaurant. Everyone thinks that they're the most important person that comes in the restaurant. And so they tend to talk down on a lot of the staff. And it's my job to obviously, as a leader, you want to make sure that you keep money coming in the door, right? Like if you don't have money coming in the door, we don't have a business. So you obviously accommodate people. You want them to feel special, but you also don't want them to talk down on your people. And so there was a balance between making sure that your customers are taken care of while also making sure that your people are taken care of. And I remember one story in particular. There was a celebrity figure that came in and was very rude to our hostess, and she was an incredible person, always bubbly, always smiley, highly intelligent, could handle the whole floor. And she just broke down, and she just came back into the kitchen. She's like, I quit. She's like, I'm done. I quit. And I think I'm the type of person that I could see both sides of it, right? I could see like, yeah, she probably could have been a little bit more accommodating, but I could see her side, like she doesn't need to put up with that. She was pursuing acting. That was what she wanted to do. This was just a job to get her through that. And she broke down crying. She's like, I quit. I think where my experience came in, I just said, okay, I will let you quit, but you can't do it today. I said, go home, take tonight off, and then call me tomorrow letting me know that you want to quit. And I think what that does, because I've realized that in the moment, people can say things or do things that they don't truly mean, but our emotions get the best of us. And so finding an ability to like separate the emotion from the situation. The next day she called me, she's like, okay, I don't quit. I'm like, I know you don't quit. Like, you're so good at this job and you need it. And like, we work well together. But it's like, I think that was another lesson of like, sometimes our egos, whatever it may be, our emotions can get the best of us. And if sometimes you can just pull yourself away from that situation, be like, I love you, you love me. We're just fighting right now. Let's move the emotion out of the way and let's talk about it the next day. And that works well in marriages too. But yes.
But as a leader in the business, helping the individual manage that emotional response by giving them the space to step away and talk themselves off the ledge
Right.
are really helpful. That makes sense. So now you've moved in consulting. What have you found so far? Do you find a lot of what you've been doing in the past has applied well? Are there new battles you're fighting in our world? What are your thoughts on the path to consulting and where you are with these pieces?
I think what I have realized is people truly do want, I think 90% of the people truly do want what they're working on to be effective, efficient, and succeed. And I think I just think egos and it sometimes can get in the mix of what, you have to sort of sort through. And so I think as a consultant, it's not just my job to say, let's identify the problem, here's a solution. It's also my job to listen to some of the personalities and to really sort of help diffuse and really bring the people along with the project versus just let's solve the project. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. So it's not just about the outcome that you've all agreed on. It's about, I use the word, a catalyst to help the people that are part of the project also work through their piece. It's almost like supportive leadership especially because most recently as a program manager, you really are charged with keep the whole thing on track across all the parts. And so I think what you're describing is that challenge. And that makes sense. That's definitely one of the things I think I see is as you got trained by Starbucks, very customer service oriented. You got trained in, high end restaurant retail, very customer service oriented. And that's our world too, right? If we're not focused on the customer service, and to your point, every part of the team, not just maybe the buyer or the executive sponsors, but also our own team members. We have to maintain that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you could see it in the last project I was on, very much so. There are people that only cater to their bosses, right? That's understandable why they do that. But unfortunately, sometimes then they don't have that same grace or they don't have the same tact that they do with their authority figure as they would the people below them. And there can be this frustration. And so it's like, who's actually the ones doing the work? Usually are the ones that are below, the below you. And you really want to make sure that they're bought in. It's a little form of change management, a little bit. It's a little bit of that. Like, how do we get everybody on board to see the picture of where we're trying to go? And a lot of that means you have to sometimes rephrase or re-talk through a lot of the things that you're trying to get accomplished, because they're not motivated by the money as much as maybe the people above, right? So there's a little bit of different things that motivate people.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, if we shift gears a little bit to the ways the kinds of solutions we're trying to get done. I know XR has been something for a couple of years now. We've spent energy towards. I know you've got the art behind you. It's actual augmented reality. What are your thoughts on that space? I mean, Zuckerberg was throwing more at it in today's dollars than we spent going to the moon as a country. And now we really haven't seen that come to market in the way we might have expected given the spend. What are your thoughts on that space right now? And when do you think it'll be more mature? When do you think it's going to be ready?
Yeah, I think the big problem, which, you and I have already talked, but we'll talk about it right here, is like, there wasn't just the app, right? Like, there wasn't the thing that really made everyone want to dive into the hardware. And so I thought it was a cool thing. You could put this big headset on. We have had meetings in the virtual world. It's interesting, but is it enough for me to say every single time I have to get it on? No, it's not. So there just wasn't that just killer app that made everyone want to have to spend some money on this hardware. Where I think it's going to get to next is potentially once you can figure out and solve the glasses or something that's a little bit more lightweight. Even we looked at some of the things that you could put on. They have cables connected to it. You walk around and you might tug. So I still think we're pretty far out, because I think a lot of the energy and focus is on AI right now. And so I think a lot of the innovations have turned from extended reality, augmented virtual reality into AI. How do we catch up with what people are working on in AI? And then we'll come back and look into XR,
So it sounds like I'm hearing you say two pieces. One, form factor was a problem. And secondly, the killer app. There was no, this is what we all have to do here.
Yeah. I think
agree.
of it like an iTunes, right? Like iTunes came out on the iPhone, right? And it was like you could have songs. You didn't have to have CDs. It was something you could carry with you that held all of your music on it. I mean, it was something. I mean, I know you're not an Apple fan, but that's okay. We can. I think you understand
me someday.
I think you understand the point, like, right? Like, if it was something that we had to use, it would make the rest of our life much easier, like AI does. Then it would be a bigger adoption.
Well, you just wrapped the beginnings of an AI program, so you've been diving deeper on the AI side as well. What are your thoughts in that space, especially as we see, it seems like new announcements almost every week with major leaps forward in capabilities and training. What are your thoughts on that space right now?
I love it. I love AI. Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I actually just got done reading a couple articles before this call in the Wall Street Journal and about how different companies are utilizing AI in their businesses, which I think is funny. Like, I always say the name wrong. Sbarro, the pizza place, how they're utilizing AI and cameras, and they're having like still footage, or they're having cameras take photos of their pizza placements, like across all the stores every 5 minutes or something like that, and the AI is analyzing them and showing like which ones, like incorporating like how letting the team know who's displaying their pizzas the best, how often we need to be changing out our pizzas. And it's weird how people are using AI, but I love it. The thing I think that's most fascinating is with every new invention, there's going to be someone that comes out and tries to do something harmful with it. And with that, then will come structure and fences around the technology. And so I'm excited to see what Anthropic is doing with, they have an actual like safety team on board looking at AI and saying, okay, this is going too far in AI. We have to be careful with this. I think that's when AI is really going to get interesting.
I think you're touching on, so would you say that government regulations are going to curb bad actors, or is it more we just described it's up to the software companies to work to protect us?
Yeah, I think it's going to be software companies are going to give the government ways in which we can protect the society using AI. Well, I don't want to say this, never mind. I got to be careful because this is, this will be public. So I have my own private opinions, but I think there are certain AI companies that worry me more than others. I think there are certain leaders in certain AI companies that seem to be more about self-elevation than I think they are about what's best for society. And I appreciate other companies coming out and saying, this is what our team has found. We need the government to make this be a standard across all AI to protect society as a whole.
Yeah. One thing I find fascinating is, of course, the next step from the AI is into the robotics and then merging those two. And I know Elon said he thinks that in, let's just say 10 years, he can get $1,000 robot in everyone's house. It'll be fascinating to see where that develops, because to your point, there's been plenty of movies about the risks that we can see once we put the AI into a functioning physical device, and whether or not we can control it, whether or not it becomes a danger to us.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on AI?
I absolutely think that it's the next step in the future. I think we have this existential question that I don't know we've really answered yet, is if you take it to its logical conclusion, which is that it can do everything we can do, down to full mobility and more, right? It could be fully integrated to all the digital things around us and interact with those in ways we can't. What's our purpose? What are we really still here for, right? And if they're here to serve us, great. I saw a meme, I'm not here for the AI to do my job, like write the article for me or create my art. I want to do the dishes and do the laundry, right? I need to go do the things I don't want to do.
Right. Yeah.
So that I can focus on that which is rewarding to me. So I think that's the piece that we need to keep in mind as we move forward. Never mind bad actors, to your point, that can absolutely take these things and cause problems, but also just taking it to its logical conclusion, keeping in mind we hold space for the humans. What is it that we're really here for to participate in? And if it's purely experience, that's great. But then how do we make sure we're not taking all that experience away?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I love that for sure. Yeah.
So I think that'll be fascinating, because I know every generation we have fear of the next technology, but the next generation, like, our kids are going to have ideas and ways to interface with AI and technology and all the pieces that we haven't even thought of yet.
Right.
And that's what I always find fascinating.
Right. Yep. Agreed.
Right. Speaking of which, you got 3 little ones at home right now. Excited about the holiday?
Yeah. We'll go into this real quick. Okay.
Okay, please.
So when my wife and I got married, one of our first disagreements was, will we say Santa is real? Okay. We agreed on
so at what age do you stop saying it, right?
Yes, right. And so for me, I grew up thinking Santa was real, and it didn't affect me at all. I'm like, great. Like, I had a cool, fun childhood. I got to like play the games and open gifts from Santa. So for me, it was like a just whimsical, fun thing. I didn't think, oh, my parents lied to me. Adult figures will always lie. I didn't think that. I just was like, okay, cool. Now I know he's not real. For my wife, it was the opposite. She learned very quickly that Santa wasn't real, like just based on her being a very observant person. She's like, this isn't possible. So she didn't want to do this with our kids. I did. Organically, though, it's been fascinating. We just have never given gifts from Santa, so it just hasn't been a thing. We go see Santa. My wife is like, yeah, there's a guy dressed up as Santa. So it hasn't been, I mean, my oldest son is 4.5. My daughter just turned 3. I have a 9-month-old. So it's like they're still a little bit young enough where it's not like oh, Santa's coming type of thing.
So you don't do Elf on the Shelf for sure?
No Elf on the Shelf. No, I was thinking about Elon on a rocket or whatever the new one is,
Didn't know about that.
They're talking about like putting an Elon on the shelf on like on every government office building, making sure people are not spending more than they should. I was thinking about putting that on my wife's Amazon account, just an Elon on the cart.
Elon going, no, no, no.
Yeah. Are we being efficient with our money? Doge is on. Yeah, no, but we're excited. We're at the stage now where it's like, what is our family tradition? Like we're trying to figure out what is that going to be for our family.
And you don't have the answer yet.
No, although we may set up a tent in the living room and like put like Christmas lights on the tent and like an air mattress in there and just sleep there Christmas Eve.
That's a great idea. That's fun.
Just as something, and then wake up Christmas morning, and I don't know. We haven't figured it out yet. We have a day. We have a day.
Figure it out today.
Yeah.
My dad, very early, when I was 5 years old, his father started giving him Lionel trains, and they were the O gauge, which is pretty big, especially for a little 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And they were all electric, right? So they're very heavy, and it's metal tracks, and there was this whole thing. And so every Christmas for years, he was receiving a new locomotive or a new car, and so it built out to, I don't know, there's like 17 or 18 cars now that he's passed down. And so that's the new thing we've been trying, is to set up the train and run the train around the tree at Christmas. So
awesome.
Then my girlfriend decided to get a little ambitious. Like, there's a lot of track. Can we just run it all over the house? I'm like, we're going to step on it. No, just around the tree.
Is it one of those like actual has like steam coming out of it?
Yes. Yeah, steam.
I love that.
One locomotive, you can put a battery in it. There's a horn sound.
That's so cool.
So it's pretty fun. And the kids are having fun with it too. So that's always great.
Love it. It's awesome.
Now, if you go into the new year, are you somebody that as the year wraps up, you make some sort of like, I want to commit to these things in the next year?
Yeah, I do.
I am. What do you have resolutions ready for already?
I have a couple, but I tend to be more of the guy that like I start it now. So I'm not a fan of waiting until January 1st to do something. I'm a fan of once I know what I want to do in the new year, start it today and try to roll into the new year with like that habit going. So I have a couple hobbies that I'd like to, love to, my family's German. And so I would love just actually finally learn German and I understand it. It's just I'd like to speak it. I'd like to be able to actually have a conversation in German with people. So
I think Babbel's doing a lifelong subscription, and it gets you like 150 languages or something like that.
Yeah. So our family uses the other one, the owl. What's the?
Yeah, I can't think of the name, but I know what you mean.
I can't think of it either. Duolingo. Yeah. So our family uses Duolingo. So I don't know. I think German would be fun. I want to lose a little bit of weight. I think 3 kids and has slowed me up a little bit. Also, aging has made things a little bit harder. So just your typical New Year's resolutions. And I have a whiteboard over here with business goals. And so like, what do we want to do in the business for, the consulting work? And I break things down into like leading and lagging indicators. So in order for me to hit our lagging indicator, what does our leading indicators need to be? Like, what do I need to be doing daily in order for us to be able to see the results of that? And so,
that's great.
So I got a business, personal and family. I'd love to take one of our kids out every month, just one-on-one.
That's a great idea. Just for some ice cream, or walk around the block, or a movie, or what does it look like?
What do you want to do? Do you want to I know my son's always just want to be like, let's throw the football. Like, okay, we'll go do that. Just a one-on-one time, because obviously my wife is with them nonstop. So I'd like to just kind of just do one-on-one with each of them.
So I know the work's always structured. At some level, we kind of know we got to get started at the beginning of the day, and at some point we wind down, may not stop, because there's always things that come up in the evenings of the weekend. But the personal side, I feel like, for me at least, applying some structure to it's always helpful. Do you find you're going to try to set aside an hour a week to start working on the German, or is kind of like it just fits in between things?
Yeah, so I use, I might have told you about this, but I use a app called Motion, which I find fascinating. But the way that it sets up is essentially like you have your to-do list on your calendar, and if you get something done, you check it off, and it rearranges your schedule to do the next task, whatever that may be. And if you have a meeting that gets scheduled on there, it moves everything around that meeting. And so it's constantly rearranging your schedule based on whatever comes in. And then I set up that only my work can get scheduled between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And my hobbies can get scheduled anywhere between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. or 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. So if I put a hobby on there and I don't get to my German before work, then I can do my German after.
Okay, that's good. And that's I like the app idea to help keep things in order.
I just pull up the app and I'm like, okay, let's just start on this first task.
Yeah.
And
So
it works for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Think back over your career or just even the personal relationships. Is there anyone that kind of stood out that you're like, this is someone who represents a role model, or they're working a certain way, or maybe the opposite? Somebody you're like, I don't want to be anything like that, so I'm going to work on being the other way around. Like, is there somebody who stands out for you that has really helped you define what you're working on in your career, or even how you interact with your family as a piece of it?
Yeah, both. And it's funny because you actually thankfully fit in the good category. I did. Yeah,
You're not quitting tomorrow. Good, Matthew.
Yeah. So, the one of the things about getting an opportunity to work for a lot of different people is I've gotten to take, it's like dating, right? Like when you work for a boss, you essentially, it's like dating to find, your spouse. It's like you see what you don't like and eventually you find someone that you enjoy working with. But I think the greatest lesson I learned was with a previous role was kind of what I didn't want to do. And I mean this very respectfully for the last person I worked with, but just there was a lot of there just people weren't getting taken care of like they should. It was like the boss and then everyone else. As a company begins to grow, it's nice when a boss is like, I want everyone to experience the fruits of all of our labor. And if you're if you're not a public company, if you're a private company, which most of the startups that I work with are private companies, you don't tend to get the stocks, and you don't tend to get this, you don't tend to get this. You just kind of you work with your salary, and as you hope that maybe there's a bonus that a boss is generous enough to give, but that didn't happen. And so the other thing I learned is an idea of having in my own life, what's that perfect number for me? So like, I think what a lot of driven people like us and other people that might watch this podcast do is they keep wanting to pursue more and more and more and more. And what happens there is that in your pursuit of more, you have to make a sacrifice. There's always a trade-off for everything that you do. And so what I saw in this last job was the pursuit of more ended up having a lot of bad consequences for life around this person. And so I think having a set number of like, this is what I want to achieve. Anything more is great. But once I hit this, my family's taken care of. I have that balance in my life because I'm not constantly moving that target further and further down the road. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but I'm just saying for me personally, it's like I care about my family a lot, that once I hit this, my family's taken care of. Everything beyond that is just like, great. I'm not trying to pursue more, if that makes sense.
Now, it's a really good point of, in the end, like you said, I could agree more. Everything in life is a trade-off. And so at some point, the price is too high. And you got to know when to stop chasing the potential and take what you have. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Now, on the good side of it, I had a old business partner that I worked with for, I think, 2.5 years. We built a company. It was a very successful company. Never even knew my wife's name. Never, like, I invited him over, like, didn't ever come over, always wanted me to go to his house. All of our meetings were up by his house. Never asked about my kids, never cared about my son. And to me, someone who's a family man, that was very hurtful for me. Then I have someone like yourself, if I could share the story real quick, but then I have someone like yourself that sent my wife flowers and said, thank you for the sacrifice that you're doing so that Matthew can do his job here at the company. And I told you this, and I'll tell you this on this, like, to me, that's way more impactful than if you were like, here's a couple $100 bonus, or here's whatever. Even if you were like, here's a $2,000 bonus, I'm like, thank you, that's nice. But to me, that gesture far surpasses any type of monetary thing that you could give me. And I think I think a lot of CEOs or a lot of leaders don't understand the importance of.
Yeah. And it's hard because, as you get to a certain size organization, you can't know everybody's spouses and kids and pieces. But I do think that as an organization, if I'm taking the right care of you and my other leaders, and then you guys do the same for the rest of our team, we get the right outcome, even if I'm
Right.
not able to personally do it. So I
Right.
couldn't agree more how important that is.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And I do think watching how you interact with your team, has allowed me with my team to say, oh, this person, like we had somebody on our team who was impacted by the hurricanes in Florida. We were able to send her, just a gift card, like an Amazon gift card, Starbucks, like very just like, even though we're paying her, like it's your job, but like we care about you beyond your job. And because of that, I think there's also return loyalty of like, they care about me, not just what I'm giving them, but also just about me as a person. And that trickles down.
So as we wrap up here, Matthew, is there any salient point you want to share with the group on thoughts around making sure you keep focused on people and the value of the balance in our lives?
Well, I wish we would have dove more. I mean, I wish we'd had a little bit more time to dive into AI, because I do think you brought up a great point that I would have loved to dive into deeper, which was, like you said, we want the robots to do the things that we don't want to do so that we can do the creative things that we want to do. And I know that you've seen some of the AI stuff take over songwriting and writing songs and things like that. And I think in regards to, I just want to touch on this real quick. I don't believe the fear around AI taking over creative things is actually, it's a novelty right now. I don't think it's a sustainable thing. I think AI is going to go beyond that, to your point, to things that are actually doing the things that we don't want to do, because artists want to create, writers want to write. Like, this is just a part of who they are. And I don't think that should be a fear that people have. All right, we'll go there. I'll put that to bed.
But that makes sense.
Right.
Well, hey, thank you for taking some time here on the holiday. I appreciate
Yeah.
you rounding out the year with me.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mark. Hopefully you guys have a great Christmas and a good New Year.
You too.
All right, thanks.